Ever find yourself, up late tinkering away in one of those virtual garages, the ones I'm talking about? Those mobile games that let you build out like your dream car piece by piece.
Well, yeah, like a digital gearhead's paradise.
Yeah, exactly. Well, on today's deep dive, we're going to be checking out CarX Street. It's a mobile racing game that has been climbing the App Store charts, and we're going to see if it lives up to the hype by looking at the Google Play Store listing, and we got some player reviews too.
And with over 10 million downloads and then a 4.5-star rating from over 400,000 reviews, it's safe to say that this game has caught the eye of a lot of mobile gamers.
Yeah, for sure. So the Google Play description talks about this massive open world called Sunset City. Highways, city streets, drift races. It sounds like a pretty big playground to explore. But what really caught my attention was how deep they go with the car customization.
Yeah, and that seems to be where CarX Street really tries to set itself apart.
Mm-hmm.
They're really proud of this CarX technology engine that powers the game. Yeah. They claim it's like super realistic physics.
Okay, but everyone claims their game has realistic physics these days. What does that actually mean, for the gameplay?
Well, so think about it this way. If you swap out your car's engine in real life for a more powerful one, you'd expect to feel that difference when you hit the gas right. Like the description even mentions feeling the weight shift during turns. So it's not just about how things look, it's about how the car actually handles on the road.
Oh, okay, I see. So you're not just slapping on a cool spoiler, you're actually tweaking the performance and feeling how those changes impact the way the car drives.
Exactly. And it adds a whole other layer of strategy to the customization. Imagine fine-tuning your car for street races versus drifting. You'd need totally different setups to be good at each.
That's a good point. Now that you mention it, some of the reviews we pulled mentioned tuning. One player was talking about how you could adjust everything from tire pressure to gear ratios.
Exactly. And they even let you customize the visuals too. So new headlights, custom paint jobs, rims. It's like having your own virtual garage where you can really let loose and be creative.
And you know what? That level of detail on a mobile game, pretty impressive. I've played some racing games where the best you can do is change the color.
Yeah, the mobile gaming has come a long way.
Yeah.
But remember, it's not just about how much you can customize. It's about how all of that comes together when you actually play the game. Do those realistic physics actually feel immersive? Are you really behind the wheel?
That's a really good question. To get some perspective on that, I think it's time to dive into those player reviews. All right, so let's see what the players are saying. Some of these reviews were really positive. Osama gave it 5 stars. He said CarX Street has the best graphics and gameplay a mobile game can have.
Wow, that's high praise. Yeah, and in his review, he talked about how much he enjoyed just cruising around Sunset City, especially at night. Sounds like they really put a lot of effort into making the world feel immersive.
Yeah, and I think that's a key part of any good open world game, right? The environment has to feel alive and engaging, even when you're not, in the middle of a race.
Well, for sure. And I think the day-night cycle is a nice touch. I've played so many open world games where it's just perpetually sunny and it just feels kind of weird after a while.
Yeah.
Having dynamic weather and lighting changes just adds a lot to the atmosphere.
Yeah, totally. But not all the reviews were, totally positive. Remember Jordan's review? He said he wished the controls were more realistic, having a manual transmission option.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
For some players, having that level of control is super important to feeling immersed in the game. They want to feel like they're really the ones behind the wheel, making every gear change and brake adjustment.
Yeah, I get that. But then again, I can also see why they decided to go with a more simplified control scheme for CarX Street. It probably makes the game a lot easier to pick up and play for more casual players who might not be familiar with manual transmissions and all that.
Yeah, it's this constant balancing act for developers, right? Trying to appeal to the hardcore racing fans while also making it accessible to more casual gamers. It's interesting though, because even Jordan, the guy who wanted the manual transmission, he still gave the game a 4-star rating.
So maybe the core gameplay is just good enough that it makes up for the lack of super realistic controls, at least for some players.
Yeah, it seems that way. But then you've got reviews like Matt's. He was pretty frustrated with the difficulty. He said that the AI racers felt overpowered.
Yeah, the classic overpowered AI. I've definitely raged quit a few racing games because of that.
It can be a real turnoff for players, for sure. And it raises questions about the game design too, right? Is the difficulty curve balanced, or are they making it intentionally hard to encourage players to spend money on upgrades?
Oh, that's a good point. And that brings us to the in-game economy, which Matt also mentioned in his review. He was complaining about car parts being really expensive and the payouts from races being kind of low, which is a pretty common complaint with free-to-play games, isn't it?
It is. It's a tough balance for developers, you know? They've got to monetize the game somehow, but they also don't want players to feel like they're constantly being pressured to spend money.
Right, and it's not like the Google Play description is going to come right out and say, hey, we designed this game to make you spend money.
Exactly. It's one of those things you kind of have to figure out from reading player reviews and actually playing the game yourself.
Speaking of player reviews, there was one that mentioned this really weird bug where the controls would just stop working in the middle of a race, like steering, brakes, gas pedal, nothing. That sounds pretty frustrating.
Yeah, that does raise some questions about quality assurance. I mean, with a game this big and with frequent updates, there are bound to be some bugs that slip through the cracks.
It's like, you're trying to keep a high-performance engine running smoothly. Even with the best mechanic in the world, there are always going to be those, unexpected issues that pop up.
Yeah, and that same reviewer also mentioned that they wanted full wheel rotation options and the ability to turn off force feedback. It seems like they were really looking for a more customizable control scheme.
Which makes sense, especially for people who are really into racing games. Having that level of control can really make the game feel more realistic and immersive.
And it highlights how far mobile gaming has come. What used to be a platform for simple casual games is now capable of delivering experiences that can rival consoles and PCs.
So we've got this mix of feedback. Some people love the realism and the depth, while others find the difficulty a bit much, or wish there were more control options.
It's a good reminder that every game, no matter how popular it is going to have its strengths and weaknesses. What matters is whether the positives outweigh the negatives for you.
Very true. To get a better sense of the bigger picture here, I think we should take a look at who's behind this game. Remember that little tidbit about the developer being based in Dubai?
Oh yeah, CarX Technologies. Not exactly the first place you think of when you think about game development, is it?
Not really. Most people think of Silicon Valley or Japan when they think of gaming hubs. So what's the story there? Why Dubai?
Well, it's actually a pretty fascinating example of how the gaming industry is becoming more global. Dubai has been investing a lot of money into technology and innovation lately.
So it's not just about oil anymore, huh? They're trying to branch out and become a major player in the tech world.
Exactly. And the gaming industry is a huge part of that.
It's kind of cool to see a game like CarX Street coming out of a place like Dubai. It really challenges our assumptions about where innovation comes from.
It does. And it speaks to the power of gaming to connect people from all over the world. You've got a game developed in Dubai being played by millions of people around the world, and here we are talking about it on a podcast. It's a pretty global industry when you think about it.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it that way. Okay, so we've explored the features, we've dissected the player reviews, and we even dug into the Dubai connection. But there's still one big question looming over this whole deep dive. Is CarX Street actually worth your time?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's no easy answer. We've seen, the game has a lot going for it, but it also has its fair share of drawbacks.
So where do we go from here? How do we help our listeners decide if this is the right game for them?
I think the best approach is to really weigh the pros and cons. Consider what you're looking for in a racing game and then make an informed decision.
Sounds like a plan. So let's break it down. What are the key takeaways here? What should our listeners be thinking about?
All right, so let's do a quick recap. On the plus side, we've got CarX Street, offering this huge open world to explore, a really deep car customization system, a graphics that really push the limits of what you can do on mobile.
Yeah, and we can't forget about that CarX technology engine. Sounds like it's doing a lot of the work to bring those realistic physics to life.
Right. But then on the other hand, some players are saying that the AI racers can be a little too much to handle. And then there are the concerns about the in-game economy and whether it feels like it's pushing you to spend real money. And yeah, we got to mention those bugs. Not every player is going to run into it, but those sudden control failures can be super annoying.
Totally. It's like you hit a surprise pothole in your perfectly tuned virtual race car.
Hopefully they get those ironed out in future updates. And then remember, some players mentioned wanting more realistic control options, like being able to use a manual transmission.
Yeah, it does feel like kind of a missed opportunity for players who want to really get into the nitty-gritty of driving. But at the same time, I can see why they might have gone with a simpler approach to make the game appeal to more people.
Yeah, for sure. It's a tough choice as a developer. Do you sacrifice realism for accessibility? or risk turning off those casual players. It's something they're always wrestling with.
So what does all of this mean for you, the listener? Should you hit the gas on CarX Street or pump brakes?
Well, if you're a casual gamer who's looking for a good-looking racing game with tons of customization, then CarX Street might be worth checking out.
Especially if you're into that whole car culture. Building your dream car can be pretty fun.
But if you're more of like a hardcore racing sim fan who needs the most realistic experience possible, then you might be left wanting a little more.
Especially with those simplified controls and the whole AI thing we talked about.
Exactly. And keep in mind, we've only scratched the surface here. There are tons of player reviews, forum discussions, gameplay videos out there.
Yeah, it's like a whole highway of information just waiting to be explored.
So do your research before making a decision. See what other players are saying. Maybe watch some people play the game.
Get a feel for the game and see if it matches what you're looking for.
Because at the end of the day, the most important thing is to find games that you enjoy.
And hey, if CarX Street ends up being your next mobile gaming obsession, then awesome. If not, there are plenty of other games out there.
Exactly. Keep exploring, keep playing, and most importantly, have fun. That's what it's all about.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And listeners, if you do end up checking out CarX Street, let us know what you think. We're always down to chat about the latest mobile games.
Until next time, happy racing.